Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the YouSchool podcast. Today, I am here with a really good friend for many years, Nicole Pearson. And there's a couple reasons why I wanted you to be on the show, Nicole. One is your path and the career trajectory that you've taken. And it's quite interesting. And then secondly, to talk about what you do. And it's rare to have somebody that can really work out of a value, a personal value that can influence and impact lots of people. So welcome to the show. And Nicole, maybe just a little bio about you, if you're willing to share who you are, where the heck in the world you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me. So I'm here in San Diego, California, and I am married. My 20th anniversary is coming up this month. My husband and I have been married 20
Wow,
years.
awesome.
We have a 15-year-old son and and a new dog. So we're a happy family of four. I love all things nature, outside, surfing, hiking, we mountain biking. We get to do all those fun things as a family. Um, and I really love serving, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that today. That's one of my passions as well. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, tell me a little bit. I actually don't know. I'm sure when we first met, I asked, but I forget. Sorry. College and then early part of your career. What did that
Yep.
look like?
So I went to Arizona State. Go Sun Devils. I'm a Sun Devil.
Yep.
I graduated with a career in communication. And I actually did not have any idea what I was going to do with that. It was one of those things where I kind of went to school and thought, well, I'm really good at writing papers, so I guess I'll
Huh.
write papers. And so I got my degree in this, literally the study of human communication. And
Huh.
I remember graduating. I graduated in 3.5 years. I don't know why I was in such a hurry to get out of college.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, now what? I didn't do any internships really. I was involved with a lot of clubs at ASU. But kind of like the one thing I knew is I wanted to do something that would make a difference. I wanted to do something meaningful. And I remember having this
Huh.
conversation with my dad that I will like never forget. And he was trying to steer me into a career in sales. He'd been in sales his
Okay.
whole life and thought that I would be a great salesperson. And I remember saying to him, Dad, I have to do something meaningful. If I'm gonna work hard in this life, it has to be for something that matters and makes a difference. I'm not going to be
Hmm.
selling widgets. I can't. And so I got connected with a man who became my mentor for several years, and he told me, you should start off in nonprofit. This is the perfect place for you.
Huh.
And so he got me connected with a nonprofit, the Multiple Sclerosis Society. And I actually started my career working as an event
Huh.
coordinator for them. I knew nothing about MS when I started, but very
Uh-huh.
quickly got tied to the cause, like really tied to the cause, just getting to know the people and realizing the impact of my work. And so I actually worked there for 12 years, my first like
Wow.
career out of college. I did
Wow.
nonprofit
Yeah.
work in a variety of different kind of roles in there, but always kind of bringing in money to fund the great work that we were doing at the MS Society. And so um, it was a little bit challenging because, as you might imagine, the salary of a nonprofit worker, uh, it wasn't great, especially when I started, 20
Yeah.
some years ago. But I don't ever regret having spent that time there and getting to feel really passionate about the work I was doing, but also learning a lot of really great skills that I think gave me a fantastic foundation for kind of, well, doing what I am now, for sure. For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, actually think that's fascinating because I ended up working for a nonprofit too. And if you had a conversation with me when I was whatever 16, 17, thinking about college, I don't even think I had a concept that that was a
No.
thing. I mean, it wouldn't have been a foreign thought, but that wasn't a part of the world that I grew up
Yeah.
in. And there's this exercise. There's a guy named Chris Lord that we've done some work with that has this thing called a prioritization exercise, and it's a way to help you think and reflect on what's most important to you about your career.
Mm.
And this idea of loving what you do compared to the money that you make. it depending on how you prioritize those might shift the path that you take.
Absolutely.
And so you got to do this thing that you loved, and the byproduct of it was it gave you this skill set that carried you into a different career.
That's right. That's right.
What are you doing now?
Yeah. So for the past, gosh, almost 6 years, I've worked for this organization called Thrivent. And it's actually a not for profit, which is different than a
Oh,
nonprofit. So, a not for profit is actually very profitable, as you might imagine. We have this really unique IRS status where we are
huh.
tax exempt. And so, all of the money that we would pay to the government in taxes, we get to give back into the communities. And so if you
Wow.
think about it kind of just very high level, whereas I used to be on the side of the house where I was asking for money and fundraising, now I'm kind of on the
Yeah.
other side of the house where I have a lot of money that I get to help direct and give away and
Huh.
make an impact in the community that way. And so my role, it's called engagement leader. And basically what I get to do, it's kind of like two paths. So one path is I work out in the community and I connect with churches and a lot of faith-based nonprofits, and actually some not faith-based nonprofits, now that I think about it. And we talk about what Thrivent can do to help them resource both their clients and their staff with financial resources. So if you think about
Hmm.
kind of all the things that people need, right? They need food on their back, they need clothes on, or food in their belly, clothes on their back. But they need financial education, right? That's like an important
Hmm.
part of, I think, well-being, is having that piece kind of in the right place as well. And so I get to resource these organizations with Thrivent's free financial education resources.
Hmm.
That's one side of the house. The other side of the house is I get to work with our clients. So we also sometimes call them members. It's kind of interchangeable. But
Uh-huh.
basically, our clients are people that work with Thrivent, which is a financial services organization, right? So they work with us, they allow us to manage their finances. Maybe they have like life insurance with us or something like that. But they are with us because our mission is very different than other
Hmm.
financial organizations' mission. So we have a very clear goal that we want to help people find financial clarity so that they can live generously and live lives of meaning and gratitude.
Hmm.
And so I actually get to work with our members and help create opportunities for them to live generously, both locally within their communities, as a group of members, but then also
Hmm.
Thrivent has a bunch of like generosity programs that are basically catalysts to get our members to do generous things in their community. And so I educate
Huh.
our members about those generosity programs in hopes that it will inspire them to get out and like be part of the army of good, right? Out there doing great things in
Yeah.
their community. So it's so amazing. And in fact, I was on a call this morning and one of our VPs, like of the whole organization, again, we're a Fortune 500 company, was
Hmm.
talking about the fact that we're this super duper profitable organization and how blessed we are to be as profitable as we are. And she goes, but we don't really care about what's in the bank account because we all know that
Hmm.
we do this because we see money as a tool and not a goal, right? So our
Yeah.
tool, money is our tool as an organization to go out and do good, which is
Huh.
like pretty amazing that I get the backing of
Yeah.
this massive company to go do really
Right.
cool things that impact the community here in San Diego.
That's amazing, and I didn't know some of the stuff you just shared. So now I'm coming for your job. That sounds awesome.
Exactly.
Move over.
I know. I know. Yeah, I wish I could have more of me here because
Yeah.
there's so many good causes that I want to support, and I want to help our
Right.
members support them. And I'm me, so I can only do so much.
How do you, as a mom of a 15-year-old, how do you think he understands what you do,
Mm,
and how do you share about what you
yeah.
do? Because it sounds a little too good to be true in
hmm
some ways.
hmm So it's funny because I work mostly from home when I'm not out in the community. And during the pandemic, especially, like, he had a chance to listen to me having conversations with people
Yeah.
on the phone and stuff. And I think, in a way, because it is so complex, like, a lot of adults don't quite understand how this, we're such a unicorn of an organization. I think, in a way,
Hmm.
he still thinks that I work for a nonprofit because he's
Mm.
always seen me out in the community giving. My
Yeah.
job, it's okay, but it requires me to be working nights and weekends because sometimes that's when we gather members up together. So he knows
Right.
that I'm going to work, and I'll be like, I'm going to a church, or I'm going to this
Yeah.
nonprofit. Sometimes I actually take him along with me. He's actually a
Hmm.
Thrivent member himself at age
That's cool.
15, and so he
Yeah.
comes the other probably I think it was actually last month. We went down to an organization that Thrivent supports called the Third Avenue Charitable Organization, and we served breakfast together to the homeless
Hmm.
community. And he knows that that's part of my work. And so
Yeah.
he gets pizzas of it, but I still don't think,
Yeah.
like, he doesn't understand the breadth of what I do.
Right. Yeah. I remember I worked with college kids for a long time, and I would frequently get into conversations around their future, obviously. And there was this one kid particularly. I just said, "Hey, besides what you want to do professionally, what kind of person do you want to be?"
Mm.
And it started him down this path of thinking about his dad and his grandfather, and particularly that term generosity came
Yeah.
out. He just said they are extremely generous people.
Mm.
And so when he thought about who he wanted to turn into someday, he said generous. And so I asked naturally, so what are you doing today to be generous? And he had a very clear response. It was like, well, nothing, because I'm a college student. I don't have anything.
Wow.
And I'm just curious how you would respond to that, because I think as we're trying to talk to young people, they're in a lot of ways their viewpoint is pretty limited, obviously, but especially around that area. Like if you don't feel like you have resources or have a source of income, it's hard to imagine the other side of that when you do. So how do you maybe some tips on how do you cultivate generosity at a young age and imagine yourself doing that throughout your career, so it's not just something you do when you're older and you finally made it?
Scott, we're getting in the good stuff now. This is the good stuff. I love talking about this. Okay, so there is this misconception that generosity revolves around money and giving money to other people. Like, I'm generous because I
Yeah.
give money. And
Yep.
Thrivent is so interested in this topic that we actually commissioned this research organization called Barna
Hmm.
to do a study on generosity. And what they
Hmm.
discovered is that people express generosity in 5 different ways. There's these kind of 5 buckets of generosity. And so one of them, obviously, is financial giving. That's certainly an expression of generosity. Another one is gifts. That can be gifts you purchase,
Hmm.
that could be gifts you make, but anything that you're giving to somebody that's not money.
Yeah.
Another one is service and volunteering. So that's like what my son and I did last month. As we went, we
Yeah.
spent an hour of our time feeding the homeless. Now,
Yeah.
these last two, I think a lot of people don't think about. So one of them is emotional relational support.
Hmm.
So if you called me, Scott, and you were having a horrible day, and you said, Nicole,
Yeah.
I just need to vent. I need maybe your advice on
Yeah.
some things, but I've had a really rough day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Scott, like, I'm here for you. Lay
Hmm.
it on me. That's me being generous to you,
Hmm.
allowing you
Yeah.
to just get emotional support from me, right? A lot of people don't think that. And then the
Yeah.
last one, I think, is even the most difficult sometimes to wrap your head around, but it's this idea of hospitality.
Hmm.
Being hospitable is an act of generosity. That could be inviting somebody into your home for a cup of coffee, could be
Yeah.
providing a big, fancy, lavish meal. Um, However couch it. So when somebody says to me, well, I don't have money to be generous, I'm a college
Hmm.
student, I could probably
Hmm.
sit and talk with someone, say, tell me what you did this week. Tell me the interactions that you had. Who did you talk to? Did you help anybody with their homework this week? You
Right.
know, those are
Awesome.
expressions of generosity.
Hmm.
My son's 15. He loves working on bikes. People come to our
Hmm.
house almost every day and he fixes their bikes for
Huh.
free. That's an expression of generosity. He's
Yeah.
giving his time to help somebody and he's
Yep.
not getting anything in return. Right. So I would just encourage them to broaden their ideas around what an expression of generosity looks
Mm.
like. And I think they'd be surprised to know that they either are more generous than they think they are, or they
Right.
can be more generous than they think they can be.
Yes. That's awesome. I'm so glad you said that. It just reminded me maybe 10 years ago, my wife and I have this close to us neighbors who are this older couple, extremely generous in all those ways. And the guy stopped by our house with a wad of cash around Christmas time. I think it was $750 or 1,000. It was a lot of cash. And I was, I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, what for? And I thought it was for me. And instead, he explained that it wasn't for me. It was for us to give away because he knew where we were at financially. We weren't at this place to have like a lot of finances. And it became this like almost felt like a treasure hunt to us for what are we going to do with this cash? And that's something that we've done over the years too with our kids now, towards especially around the holidays. Just give them money to then go and look for ways to be generous. And what a cool way to kind of facilitate this, like the I guess the almost the neuroscience, the happy chemicals that you'll get, and try to seed that idea that this is the kind of thing that can happen to you should you choose this, not just if someone else chooses it for you.
Right.
But I'm glad you also brought up that idea of volunteering. I know my high school, and some high schools do this too. You have to take like volunteer service
Yeah.
hours. But I'll be totally honest, and don't tell my high school. Don't call the, the registrar. I've faked all those 80 hours. Like, I mean, I did some time, but it was neighbors who were like, "Hey, yeah, if you help me move a couch, I'll sign off that it was
Yeah.
10 hours or something." So I totally missed that, and missed all the opportunities that it could have been for me. But it's the same kind of thought of with my teenagers. Like, I hope my kids become people that do
Yeah.
that naturally volunteer. But why would they unless they do it over time?
Mhm.
Well, why would they just magically, when they're adults, decide to do it if I don't show them how to do it and why it's important, and the discipline of it, and doing it when you don't feel like it?
Yeah.
So that's a really practical thing. I think most families can wrap their minds
Yeah.
around. Or if you're a teacher listening to this, there's a lot of different ways to engage community service learning into even math classes. There's teachers that have learned how to do that in so many different ways. So it's almost like the training wheels towards generosity. Like, I'm going to put you on the bike, teach you how to do it, and then let you
Yeah.
go. And hopefully it works for you.
Yeah. And I'll
I'm
say,
curious.
can I just add
Go ahead.
one other thing when it comes
Yeah.
to, like, you're mentioning how, in high school you didn't want to spend the time, right, doing the service
Yeah.
activities. I think one of the ways that you can make it, as you're putting on the training wheels, make it a little less, a little more appealing for those kids,
Uh-huh.
is to do it with a friend group. So it's not
Oh yeah.
like necessarily the kid going alone to volunteer somewhere or with just the
Yes.
family, although
Great point.
doing as a family is great as well. But I remember one of the very first times that we ever took
Hmm.
Trent volunteering with us, we did it with three other families that had three other boys.
Huh.
And we all went together and we did, it was a
Awesome.
different organization downtown where we did a feeding. And the kids got to work, like the kids had jobs. Like the volunteers, coordinators
Huh.
there, they were like, you're 10 years old, but you have a very specific job. And so all of the
Wow.
boys felt like, oh, I'm not just here to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just be here. Like I got to play my
Right.
part. And Trent wore his hairnet and he was looking at his friends like, how are you doing? Are you doing your job? Kind of checking up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so by the time we finished that, I will never forget it because it was in Christmas time. And he goes, Mom and Dad, when's the next time we can do that? It was so great.
Hmm.
And so
Wow.
this is the
That's great.
thing. I
Yeah.
truly believe in this kind of tagline that there is joy and generosity. There just is.
Yeah.
There's this amazing,
Yeah.
like, good feeling, this warm feeling that you get. And so if we can help kids
Hmm.
experience that young, I find
Yeah.
even as an adult, you want to keep experiencing that joy of generosity. Like, you
Yes.
feel purposeful.
Yeah. There's even research studies, I've read them, about how commitment to community service for teenagers will help them make better choices with substances. Like, they're much less likely to make dumb choices and harmful choices for themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, go figure.
Yeah.
If 16-year-old Nicole can meet Nicole today, in what ways would she be surprised? In what ways would it make total sense what you're doing?
Yeah. I actually don't think 16-year-old Nicole would be very surprised because
Really?
kind of unlike you, Scott, I actually joined a service organization club in my high school.
Okay. Oh, good for you. Good for you.
Not to brag, but I'm just like telling you that it was important to me early on, right? Like, nobody
Yeah.
had to tell me to go get my hours. I was purposefully getting my hours.
Yeah.
And to your point, like, I didn't do that a lot with my family growing up.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know why that was kind of ingrained in me since I was young, that I
Hmm.
wanted to serve other people. I really don't know. I think
Yeah.
perhaps maybe I'd been a recipient of generosity. I think sometimes when we are recipients of generosity, it inspires us to be more generous to other
Hmm.
people. So I think potentially that could have been the case. But anyways, I was in
Yeah.
this club. And so to see me in my role now today, I think that 16-year-old Nicole would be like, yeah, like, that makes perfect sense.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. I hope my kids are like you and don't have to find this later in life like me. Well, a quick plug, Nicole, if you're listening, watching, Nicole and I put a course together, a YouSchool course sponsored and powered by Thrivent, and it's called Your Story. It's really to help kids imagine the path that their life story might take. And it's unique, not just because it has some guided self-reflection, but also because there's 8 Thrivent clients that are on video sharing about their path in life, similar to what Nicole just shared on this episode. And so it gives a kid a chance to be exposed to a bunch of different people and what they've done and why they've done it and the path that they've taken. And research has shown that if kids have more exposure to more mentors, it's going to give them just a greater sense of confidence and clarity to make their choices. So we'll include the link in the bio. And thanks to you, Nicole. Thanks to Thrivent for that partnership. Thanks for being on the show too. Such a good friend, and it's so fun to kind of conspire together for good. And here's to more coming into 2023. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks again for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining in on the YouSchool podcast. We'd love to share with you the resources available on our website at theyouschool.com. Not just articles, ebooks, worksheets, and other podcast episodes, but specifically, you should know about a free course we have available called the Real Me course. It's digital, it's interactive, and it'll guide you to get clear about who you are and the great story you could tell with your life. So go register for a free account and get started on the Real Me course today at theyouschool.com. That's theyouschool.com.